Imagine an army so huge it drinks lakes dry in minutes. Satellites scan the globe, yet find no trace of the billions digging beneath our feet. For millennia, an iron wall was our only shield, but as rivers dry, the barrier is failing. Today, we reveal the terrifying truth of Yajuj and Majuj, the invisible flood that no modern weapon can ever hope to stop. Imagine standing on the ancient banks of Lake Tiberias as the sun begins to set over the horizon. You watch as a vast, dark horizon moves toward the shimmering water with a terrifying speed. The first wave of this monstrous billion-man army reaches the edge and begins to drink heavily. By the time the final warriors arrive at the shore, the massive lake has completely vanished. They look at the cracked, dry earth and whisper that water once flowed in this dead place. This is not a scene from a science fiction movie but a prophecy from the ancient world. We are talking about Yajuj and Majuj, the wild people trapped behind a secret iron gate. For thousands of years, they have been multiplying in a realm that our eyes cannot easily see. Modern satellites scan every inch of the planet, yet they find no sign of this massive empire. Our most powerful nuclear weapons and high-tech drones will be useless against their sheer force. The Prophet Muhammad warned that when they are released, no army will be strong enough to stop them. The air grows heavy with the sound of a billion voices echoing through the narrow mountain passes. Their faces are flat like hammered shields, and their small eyes glow with a primal hunger for life. They do not follow the rules of modern warfare or the logic of human diplomacy in our world. Everything in their path is consumed, from the smallest insect to the largest sprawling cities of men. The world as we know it will be erased by a flood of flesh that knows no mercy or fear. We often think we are the masters of this earth because of our internet and our advanced satellites. However, we are merely living on a thin crust, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath our feet. The ancient ruler Dhul Qarnayn built a barrier of iron and copper to keep this chaos away from us. But the promise of Allah is true, and the time for that barrier to crumble is drawing near. Why can we not find this wall today despite our advanced mapping and our aerial surveillance? Are they hidden in a different dimension or deep within the hollow places of our own world? Today, we will dive deep into the most terrifying mystery of the Islamic end times prophecy. Get ready to witness the full story of the horde that will bring the world to its knees. We will explore the secret technology of the wall and the biological weapon that will end them. This is the ultimate guide to the nations of Yajuj and Majuj and their final war for the planet. To understand the coming chaos, we must first look at the man who held it back for thousands of years. He is known to history as Dhul Qarnayn, the mighty and powerful king of the two horns. The Quran describes him as a unique leader given absolute authority over every corner of the earth. He was granted asbab, or the divine means to achieve every single one of his monumental goals. These were not just physical tools like hammers and iron nails from a common ancient workshop. They were deep scientific insights into the laws of nature and the hidden energies of our world. He was a master engineer who understood how to manipulate light and shadow to his advantage. Legends tell us he possessed two mystical banners that controlled the very visibility of his army. When he traveled by day, a black banner cast a thick veil of darkness behind him to hide his trail. When he traveled at night, a white banner illuminated the path ahead like the brightest morning sun. This allowed his soldiers to move with perfect precision while their enemies were left lost and confused. He was not a typical conqueror who sought personal glory or the heavy accumulation of gold and silk. Unlike the tyrants of old, he was a servant of the divine who moved across the globe to establish justice. His journeys took him to the furthest edges of the world where the sun sets in a dark, muddy spring. There he found a people and was given the choice to punish them or to treat them with great kindness. He chose the path of justice, punishing the wrongdoers while rewarding those who held a sincere faith. He then traveled to the distant east, where people lived under the sun without any form of physical shelter. Finally, his mission led him to a remote mountain range where he met a people who could barely understand him. These people were living in a constant state of mortal terror because of the raids of Yajuj and Majuj. They offered him wealth to build a wall, but he refused their gold with a heart of absolute sincerity. He told them that the power his Lord had given him was far superior to any tax or tribute they could pay. He asked only for their physical strength to help him construct a barrier that would change history forever. This shows that he was an epic hero who combined spiritual devotion with the most advanced ancient engineering. He did not just fight battles, he built a world of safety for those who were weak and completely forgotten. His legacy is not a tomb but a wall that still guards the boundary between our world and the abyss. By understanding Dhul Qarnayn, we begin to see that the struggle against evil requires both faith and action. He remains a symbol of the perfect leader who uses his power to serve the Creator and protect the innocent. Historians often debate his identity, linking him to various legendary figures from ancient Persia to Greece. Yet, the spiritual description emphasizes his character as a traveler of light and a restorer of balance. He was a bridge between nations, using his vast knowledge to solve problems that seemed impossible to others. The horns in his name might signify his reach across the two ends of the earth or his immense power. He carried the wisdom of the prophets and the practical skill of a master builder into the unknown lands. His ability to communicate with diverse cultures allowed him to unite people under a single banner of truth. Every step of his journey was a calculated move to push back the forces of chaos and protect the vulnerable. He stands as a reminder that true greatness is found in the humble service of a much higher divine purpose. While other kings sought to be worshipped as gods, he remained a humble servant who relied solely on his Lord. The tools he used were advanced far beyond his time, blending deep spiritual insight with physical laws. He was the first to recognize that the greatest threat to humanity was a cycle of corruption and violence. To build the Great Wall, he mobilized entire communities, teaching them the value of unity and hard work. Dhul Qarnayn was a visionary who saw the importance of protecting the future of all human civilizations. His story is an epic lesson on how power should be used to provide a sanctuary for those who are suffering. The construction of the Great Barrier was not merely a feat of manual labor but a display of advanced ancient metallurgy. Dhul Qarnayn commanded the local people to bring him massive blocks of iron to fill the wide gap between the peaks. He did not settle for a simple stone wall that could be slowly dismantled or broken by a persistent and wild enemy. Instead, he utilized the unique properties of iron and molten copper to create a structure of unprecedented strength. He instructed the workers to blow with their bellows until the iron blocks were glowing with a fierce and white heat. This required a massive mobilization of human energy and a deep understanding of the thermal properties of metal. Once the iron was sufficiently hot, he called for molten copper to be poured over the glowing and expanded surface. In the language of the Quran, this substance is called qitr, which scholars identify as liquid or molten copper. This technical combination created an ancient alloy that was far more durable than any material known to the world. The molten copper filled every tiny crack and crevice within the iron blocks, sealing the entire structure into a solid mass. From a scientific perspective, the copper coating prevented the iron from rusting and decaying over the many centuries. This resulted in a surface that was perfectly smooth and incredibly hard, making it impossible for anyone to climb. The tribes of Yajuj and Majuj found themselves facing a mirror-like wall that offered no footholds for their sharp claws. They could not scale the heights of the smooth metal, nor could they dig through its thick and reinforced core. This was a barrier that was physically impenetrable and strategically designed to last until the end of time itself. Historians note that the ability to work with such massive amounts of iron and copper was a sign of a lost technology. During the era of Dhul Qarnayn, most of the world was still struggling with basic tools and simple mud brick buildings. His engineering was a revolutionary leap that turned a natural mountain pass into a high-tech and permanent prison. The wall was not just a physical object but a barrier of divine protection that operated on a higher level of reality. It stood as high as the mountain peaks, creating a vertical horizon of metal that blocked the path of the corrupt nations. By using iron for strength and copper for durability, he ensured that no human or creature could breach the seal. This construction process was a sacred ritual of protection that transformed raw earth into a sanctuary for all of humanity. The people who helped him were taught that their own efforts were part of a much larger and more mysterious divine plan. They watched in awe as the red-hot iron turned into a shimmering shield that reflected the golden light of the sun. Even today, the description of this wall challenges our understanding of the capabilities of ancient civilizations. It reminds us that there were once masters of the earth who understood the secrets of the elements better than we do. The completion of the wall was a moment of global peace that allowed civilized life to flourish without constant fear. Dhul Qarnayn declared this monumental structure to be a mercy from his Lord, intended to guard the gates of the world. It remains a silent sentinel, waiting for the final command to dissolve and release the chaos that it has held back. In our modern era of total surveillance, many people wonder why the massive wall of Dhul Qarnayn has never been spotted from space. Our orbital satellites can photograph a tiny license plate on a car, yet a mountain-high barrier of metal remains completely hidden. This creates a deep tension between the physical evidence of science and the eternal promises found in the ancient scriptures. However, we must consider that our understanding of the physical world is limited to a very narrow range of human perception. What if the Great Iron Barrier is not merely hidden behind a physical rock, but exists within a different spatial dimension? Modern physics explores the possibility of extra dimensions that are folded away or vibrate at a frequency we cannot detect. Yajuj and Majuj might be living in a parallel realm that occupies the same physical space as ours but remains out of phase. This phase shift would mean that light and radio waves from our satellites pass through their world without ever reflecting a signal. Islamic scholarship refers to this hidden state as part of the Ghaib, a reality that exists just behind the thin veil of our senses. The barrier built by the ancient king may have been reinforced with a spiritual energy that acts as a cloak against modern eyes. We see this concept in historical accounts where Allah took away the sight of enemies to protect the prophets in plain view. The Creator wills for a billion-strong army to remain concealed. No amount of human technology can pierce that divine seal. Some thinkers suggest that the iron and copper alloy created by Dhul Qarnayn may have unique electromagnetic properties. This specific mixture could generate a field that bends light around the structure, creating a perfect optical illusion of a mountain. We are currently developing stealth technology that uses similar principles to make aircraft invisible to radar and human sight. It is possible that ancient masters of the Earth understood these laws of physics far better than our contemporary scientists do today. Yajuj and Majuj are often described as wild and primal beings whose nature vibrates at a frequency of absolute chaos and destruction. The barrier might be a frequency lock that prevents their chaotic energy from bleeding into our more stable and ordered reality. Until the appointed hour, they remain trapped in a pocket of time where their daily digging is reset by a divine intervention. This would explain why they can never break through until the specific phrase Insha'Allah is finally spoken by their leader. The invisibility of the wall is not a failure of prophecy, but a testament to the sophistication of the divine system guarding us. We are like children looking at a locked room and assuming it is empty because we do not possess the specific key to the door. The wall is a sentinel of the unseen world, standing firm until the moment the higher laws of the universe command it to dissolve. When that day arrives, the veil will be lifted, and the hidden billions will pour out into our world with terrifying speed. We must learn to trust that the universe is far larger and more complex than our simple maps and digital sensors can ever show. The search for the wall should not be conducted only with telescopes, but with an understanding of the multi-layered nature of existence. Perhaps the wall is right in front of us, but our brains are not yet tuned to the specific wavelength required to perceive its metal. As we approach the end of time, these dimensions may begin to overlap, allowing the physical and the unseen to finally merge once again. This would be a psychological shock to a humanity that has placed all its faith in the visible and the measurable aspects of life. The return of the hidden nations will prove that the most powerful forces are often the ones we choose to ignore in our arrogance. Only then will we realize that the ancient engineering of Dhul Qarnayn was a shield of light as much as it was a shield of iron. The mystery of the wall is a reminder that there are still secrets on this earth that no satellite or drone can ever hope to uncover. We are living in a temporary state of protection that is about to reach its final and inevitable conclusion in the very near future. Behind the massive iron and copper wall lies a world of primal chaos that defies our understanding of biology and social order. This isolated realm is inhabited by billions of beings whose only purpose is the total consumption of the Earth's precious resources. According to the sacred traditions, the people of Yajuj and Majuj belong to the descendants of Japheth, the son of the prophet Noah. However, their long period of extreme isolation has transformed them into something far removed from the civilized human race. They are described as having small, fierce eyes and broad faces that resemble hammered shields in their hard and rugged texture. One of the most terrifying aspects of their existence is the mystical speed at which their population continues to grow in secret. It is said that no member of their tribes will die until they have seen at least 1,000 of their own living descendants. If we apply the cold logic of modern mathematics to this ancient prophecy, their numbers must now be reaching into the trillions. They live in a state of primitive hunger, existing without the comforts of clothing, grand architecture, or any form of organized lore. Their society is driven by a singular, collective obsession to break through the barrier that keeps them from our physical world. Every single day, as the sun moves across the sky, these billions of creatures gather at the metal wall to dig with frantic energy. They use their sharp claws and primitive tools to slowly chip away at the iron and copper alloy built by the ancient king. By the time evening falls, they can often see the faint glimmer of sunlight through a tiny opening in the heavy metal structure. Just as victory seems to be within their reach, their leader commands them to stop and return to their work the following day. Because they do not yet speak the sacred word of submission, the wall is miraculously restored to its original strength every night. This cycle of endless effort and divine reset has continued for thousands of years, keeping our world safe from their primal fury. Imagine the psychological pressure of billions of souls trapped in a lightless realm, fueled only by the hope of future destruction. They do not know the passage of time as we do, for their entire reality is defined by the cold surface of the iron barrier. When they finally emerge, they will not behave like a human army but like a massive swarm of locusts covering the entire planet. They will drink from every stream and devour every green leaf until the earth is left as a dry and barren wasteland for everyone. Their primitive nature makes them immune to the fear and the moral hesitation that often slows down our modern military forces. For them, our world is not a place of history and culture, but a vast and delicious banquet waiting to be consumed by hunger. This hidden population remains the greatest biological threat in history, growing larger and more aggressive with every passing second. We are shielded from this nightmare only by a thin layer of metal and the silent will of the Creator who keeps them at bay. To contemplate the sheer volume of their numbers is to realize that our civilization is merely a small island in a dark ocean. The mystery of their life is a warning that the forces of chaos are always working, even when we cannot see their progress. For thousands of years, the labor of Yajuj and Majuj has been defined by a repetitive and crushing cycle of total failure. Every sunset, they stand before a wall that seems to breathe with a life of its own, refusing to yield to their sharp iron. Their leader usually says, "Go back now, for we shall return to finish this task tomorrow morning when the sun rises." But every single morning, they find the iron and copper barrier as smooth and perfect as the day it was first constructed. The wall is not just a physical obstacle, it is a manifestation of a divine command that cannot be broken by mere force. The secret to their final release does not lie in a stronger hammer or a deeper tunnel dug through the heavy metal base. It lies in the utterance of a single, sacred phrase that recognizes the supreme authority of the great Creator over all. There will come a dark day when the leader of the horde will finally add the words, Inshallah, to his daily command. This simple phrase, meaning, if Allah wills, is the only spiritual key capable of unlocking the ancient iron seal. By speaking this word, they unintentionally align themselves with the divine timing that has been written since eternity. On that specific morning, the reset will not happen, and they will find the wall exactly as they left it the night before. The barrier that once touched the clouds will suddenly crumble like dry sand, opening the path for the billion-strong army. This teaches us that even the most chaotic forces in the universe are ultimately subject to the will of the divine. The phrase, Inshallah, represents the absolute submission of all physical matter to the metaphysical laws of the heavens. Without this verbal key, their billions of laborers are nothing more than ghosts trapped in a prison of their own making. The wall stands as a silent witness to the fact that human ambition, no matter how vast, is always limited by God's decree. When the leader finally speaks the key, the era of safety for the civilized world will come to a swift and violent end. The iron will turn to dust, and the silence of the mountains will be replaced by the roar of an endless, hungry flood. This linguistic miracle shows that the material world is only a reflection of a much deeper spiritual reality above us. No amount of technology can replace the power of a single word spoken with the permission of the Lord of all the worlds. Even these wild beings must follow the script that has been laid out for the final act of human history upon this earth. The key is not found in their strength, but in their eventual, forced acknowledgement of a power far greater than their own. The moment the word is spoken, the spiritual lock is released, and the clock of the apocalypse begins its final countdown. We must realize that our own existence is also governed by this same divine permission that governs the wall of iron. Every breath we take and every empire we build is subject to the same, Inshallah, that holds back the billion-strong horde today. Prophecies are often viewed as distant echoes of the past, yet today they are manifesting as stark realities in our daily headlines. One of the most chilling signs of the end times is the dramatic and rapid recession of the majestic and ancient River Euphrates. For centuries, this river has been the lifeblood of civilizations, providing water to millions across the vast Mesopotamian plains. The Prophet Muhammad warned that a time would come when this mighty river would dry up, revealing a hidden mountain of glittering gold. Today, global news agencies and satellite imagery confirm that the water levels of the Euphrates are dropping to dangerously low levels. Vast areas of the riverbed that were once submerged are now becoming dry and cracked under the intense heat of the changing climate. While scientists discuss environmental factors and regional dam projects, believers see a countdown that was written 14 centuries ago. The drying of this river is not merely an ecological tragedy, it is a signal that the geopolitical order is nearing a violent shift. The prophecy states that when the gold is revealed, a great war will erupt, claiming the lives of nearly every soldier involved. Moving further west, we find another vital water source that is central to the journey of the billionaire army of Yajuj and Majuj. Lake Tiberias, often called the Sea of Galilee, serves as a primary reservoir for millions of people living in the Levant region today. The sacred traditions tell us that the first wave of the invading horde will drink the entire lake dry in a single massive surge. When the final members of their tribe arrive, they will look at the dusty void and wonder if water ever truly existed in that land. In recent decades, we have witnessed historical lows in the water level of Lake Tiberias, causing great concern among world leaders. Although modern technology and desalination plants have managed to stabilize the levels for now, the underlying trend remains a haunting reminder. The disappearance of these waters is a psychological preparation for a humanity that has become far too comfortable with its material power. Water is the most fundamental resource for all human life, and its removal represents the total collapse of our modern economic systems. We are currently living in an era where water is becoming more valuable than oil, exactly as the ancient scriptures predicted it would. The drying of the rivers creates a vacuum that will eventually be filled by the overwhelming physical presence of the hidden nations. It is as if the earth itself is being hollowed out to make room for the flood of flesh currently digging behind the iron barrier. Every news report about shrinking glacier and disappearing lakes should be read as a verse from a divine script reaching its finale. Must look beyond the simple scientific explanations and recognize the spiritual weight of the changing world around us in this moment. The indicators are flashing red, warning us that the era of stability is fading like the mist over a drying and exhausted riverbed. The physical thirst of the planet is a mirror to the spiritual thirst of a humanity that has forgotten its origin and its destination. Once the Euphrates and Tiberias are fully surrendered to the sand, the last physical barrier to the Great Tribulation will be removed. This environmental shift is not an accident of nature but a carefully timed event in the grand architecture of the end of days. We are witnessing the slow death of the old world as the stage is being set for the most terrifying invasion in history. The rivers are crying out, and those who have ears to hear must understand that the time of the wall is coming to an end. We are the generation destined to watch the waters fail and the hidden gates of the north finally swing open to the abyss. The Great Barrier built by Dhul Qarnayn will finally dissolve into a cloud of rust and ancient dust. A sound unlike anything ever recorded in human history will tear through the silence of the high mountains. It is the roar of a billion hungry throats, a sound that signals the end of our comfortable world forever. From every peak and valley, they will pour down like a tidal wave made of muscle, bone, and primal fury. They will move across the land with a speed that defies logic, covering the entire horizon in a matter of hours. Modern military commanders will watch their radar screens in absolute horror as the mass of humanity overflows. There is no front line to defend and no tactical retreat possible against a flood that has no end in sight. Their faces will look like hammered shields, broad and terrifying, with small eyes that burn with a dark hunger. They will not use sophisticated missiles or drones, yet their sheer weight will crush every city in their path. Every green leaf will be devoured, and every living creature will be consumed by this unstoppable swarm of flesh. When the first group reaches the Sea of Galilee, they will drink until the vast lake is nothing but dry mud. The second group passing by will look at the dusty basin and wonder if water ever truly flowed in that place. Skyscrapers will be toppled not by bombs, but by the pressure of millions of bodies pressing against the glass. The air will be thick with the smell of sweat, ancient dirt, and the primal scent of a race that has never known law. People will flee to the highest caves and the deepest bunkers, only to realize that there is nowhere left to hide. The global internet will fail and the lights of our great civilizations will flicker and die out one by one today. It is a psychological nightmare where the hunter is no longer a man, but a force of nature that cannot be reasoned with. They will shoot their arrows into the sky in their arrogance, claiming they have destroyed the people of the earth. In their madness, they will believe they have conquered both the physical world and the heavens above our heads. The world will become a giant slaughterhouse where the cries of the civilized are drowned out by the noise of the mob. This is the physical manifestation of chaos, a punishment that turns the entire planet into a sun-scorched graveyard. Every street you once walked will be buried under the weight of 1 billion feet that have been waiting for this moment. Their numbers are so vast that if their leaders were to die, 1,000 more would instantly rise to take their place. We are looking at the total annihilation of the human social structure and the return to a state of primal survival. No nuclear bunker is deep enough to escape the sound of their digging and the weight of their collective presence. The darkness they bring is not the absence of light, but the absolute overcrowding of our reality by their existence. This flood of flesh will move from the east to the west, leaving nothing but silence and dry bones in its bloody wake. It is the ultimate trial for humanity, a moment when all our technology and pride will vanish like smoke in the wind. The sheer horror of their coming will be the last thing many will see before the world enters its final, dark chapter. All the gold in the world and all the wisdom of the ages will mean nothing against the hunger of the billion-fold horde. As the massive waves of Yajuj and Majuj consume the entire world, only one small group of believers remains alive on the planet. Prophet Isa leads his people to the rugged heights of Mount Tur, turning the holy peak into the final fortress of humanity. Below them, the entire horizon is filled with a restless, dark sea of billions who have never known the concept of mercy. The air at the summit is thick with the scent of fear and the desperate whispers of those who have lost everything today. Food supplies vanish instantly, and the head of an ox becomes more valuable than 100 gold coins to the starving men. The rocks of Mount Tur become a sacred altar where the fate of the entire world will be decided in a few final moments. Looking down from the cliffs, the survivors see a planet that has been stripped bare of all its green forests and blue lakes. The siege is not just a physical battle of iron, but a psychological war against the very concept of human hope itself. The thirsty hordes below are a physical manifestation of the ultimate greed that has finally consumed the entire world. The billionaire army screams from the valleys, claiming that they have already destroyed all the inhabitants of the earth. In their blind arrogance, they shoot their primitive arrows into the sky to challenge the very kingdom of the heavens. When the arrows fall back to the ground covered in blood, the wild tribes believe they have truly conquered the divine. Every soldier of ISA knows that their life is a flickering candle in a storm that has already extinguished every other light. Prophet ISA looks at the exhausted faces of his companions and realizes that the limit of human power has been reached. There are no more tactical retreats possible, and no weapons left to blunt the edge of this monstrous billion-fold tide. In this moment of absolute darkness, the prophet raises his trembling hands toward the silent and clouded sky above. The believers join their voices in a single, powerful cry for help that echoes through the cold canyons of the mountain. They ask the Creator to intervene and save the last remnants of the human race from the jaws of this primal destruction. The collective prayer of the believers is like a shield that holds back the darkness while they wait for a divine signal. The siege of Mount Tur represents the final trial of faith, where logic is abandoned and only pure devotion remains today. Every heart on that peak beats with the terrifying knowledge that only a miracle from beyond this world can save them now. The silence of the Creator is the most difficult part of the trial, testing the resolve of the faithful to their very core. But as the night reaches its deepest point, the spiritual atmosphere begins to shift with an unseen and divine energy. The prayer of ISA is a light that pierces through the darkness of the siege, reaching the very throne of the Almighty. The stage is now set for a conclusion that no human general could ever plan or even imagine with their limited minds. They wait in the shadows of the holy mountain, listening to the roar of the horde that believes victory is finally theirs. The end of the siege will mark the beginning of a divine intervention that will erase the billionaire horde from history. This is the point of no return for the world, where the prayers of the few will finally silence the noise of the many. The billionaire army stands in the valleys below Mount Tur, consumed by a pride that touches the very stars. They look at the blood on their returned arrows and truly believe they have silenced the voice of the Creator. This is the ultimate peak of ignorance, where a physical force believes it can conquer the metaphysical realm. On the summit, the desperate prayers of Prophet ISA finally reach the highest gateways of the unseen world. The response from the heavens is not a rain of fire or a collision with a massive, world-destroying comet. Instead, the Almighty sends a creature so small that it is completely invisible to the arrogant eyes of the warriors. A tiny parasite known in the ancient texts as the Naghaf is released into the necks of the billion-strong horde. This microscopic worm is a biological signature of the Creator's absolute power over all living matter in the universe. Within a single night, the roar of the billion-fold army is replaced by a heavy and terrifying silence. They fall to the ground all at once, dying like the death of a single soul, as their primal life is extinguished. The titans of chaos, who once drank entire lakes dry, are brought down by a creature that possesses no strength. This is a profound philosophical lesson about the true nature of power and the frailty of all material existence today. We often build massive systems of control and believe that our physical strength makes us masters of our own destiny. Yet, the story of the Naghaf proves that the smallest soldier in God's army can dismantle the greatest empires. Arrogance is a thin glass shield that shatters the moment it encounters the reality of the divine will. The billions of corpses that now cover the earth are a silent testament to the futility of rebelling against the truth. The air becomes heavy with the smell of death, making the world unbearable for the few survivors on the mountain. Isa and his companions look down and see that the great tribulation has ended not with a bang, but with a whisper. This event reminds us that our technology and our numbers are nothing compared to the subtle laws of the Spirit. The great Creator uses the weak to humble the strong and uses the small to destroy the massive and the proud. We must learn to walk with humility, knowing that our very lives are held by a thread that we cannot see. The death of the Titans is a mirror for every tyrant who thinks their power will last for an eternity on this earth. Justice is often delivered in ways that the human mind can never predict or even begin to understand correctly. The silence over the valleys of Tur is the most powerful sermon ever delivered to the inhabitants of the world. Peace returns to the earth through a miracle that began in the microscopic realm of the divine biological order. The cycle of destruction is broken by the same hand that created the stars and the smallest insects in the grass. We are left with the realization that true sovereignty belongs only to the one who can kill a billion with a worm. After the silent fall of the billions, the earth remains buried under a heavy and suffocating blanket of physical death. Prophet Isa and the survivors look upon a world that has become a vast and unbearable graveyard for all of humanity today. The smell of the decaying horde is so intense that no living soul can find a clean place to breathe or stand in the wind. In this moment of literal atmospheric darkness, the prophet once again turns his heart to the heavens for a final cleansing. Allah responds by sending great birds with long necks like camels to carry the heavy bodies away to the deep, dark ocean. Then, a miraculous rain falls over every inch of the planet, washing away every trace of the ancient and corrupt blood. The earth is cleansed until it shines like a polished mirror, reflecting a sky that has finally been purged of all primal evil. For 7 long years after this divine purification, the survivors will live in a world defined by a mystical abundance. The bows, arrows, and wooden quivers left behind by the billionaire horde will serve as the primary fuel for all human fires. Not a single tree will be cut for warmth or cooking, as the discarded weapons of the enemy provide an endless energy. The very earth is commanded to bring forth its treasures, and nature responds with a fertility that defies all modern science. A single pomegranate will grow so large that a group of people can eat their fill and find shade under its thick skin. The milk from a single camel will satisfy an entire tribe, while a single cow will provide enough for a large community today. This is the era of the Great Peace, where the lion walks with the lamb and the poison is removed from the serpent's tooth. Humanity enters a state of spiritual and physical rapture, living as if the very air of paradise has descended to our world. There is no more greed, for the earth provides everything in a cycle of perpetual and divine generosity for every believer. These 7 years are reward for those who remained patient through the darkest nights of the great billionaire siege. It is a time when the seen and the unseen worlds exist in a harmony that has not been felt since the very dawn of time. We learn that after every great destruction, the Creator builds a garden for those who never lost their faith in the truth. The epic saga of Yajuj and Majuj is for more than a terrifying legend of a distant and chaotic future. It is a monumental reminder that our physical strength is merely a shadow compared to the divine will. For thousands of years, a thin metal barrier has stood between our civilization and absolute primal destruction. We live in an era where we assume that every corner of the earth has been mapped and conquered by our eyes. Yet, the mystery of the hidden billion-strong horde proves that there are secrets we cannot yet begin to fathom. The drying rivers of our modern world are calling out to us, signaling that the ancient iron gates are weak. We must ask ourselves if we are prepared for a world where our technology and our wealth will fail us instantly. True safety is found not in concrete bunkers or digital networks, but in the depth of our sincere spiritual devotion. The siege of Mount Tur teaches us that when the limits of human power are reached, the miracle of prayer begins. As we watch the signs of the end days unfold before our eyes, let us renew our commitment to the eternal truth. We invite you to reflect on the events of this history and share your own thoughts in the comments section below. How do you feel when you see the waters of the Euphrates receding, and what steps are you taking for your soul? Let us now raise our hearts in a final, solemn prayer for protection during these heavy and uncertain times. O Allah, we ask you for the unyielding patience of Isa and the divine protection given to the few on the peak. Shield our families from the spiritual confusion of the Dajjal and the physical fury of the billion-fold horde. Cleanse our hearts of all pride and help us to recognize your perfect wisdom in every single trial we face today. Grant us a place in the garden of peace that follows the storm, and keep us among those who are truly grateful. Forgive our many weaknesses and guide us to the path of those who find refuge in your presence alone for eternity. May we always remain vigilant, watching for the signs with eyes that are open and hearts that are full of faith. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through the mysteries of the ancient and future world. Until our next documentary, may the peace and the light of the great Creator be upon you and all your loved ones. Please join this humble prayer by writing Ameen in the comments and sharing your favorite verse of divine mercy. The time of the wall may be ending, but the time for our spiritual awakening is just beginning in this very hour.